I'm Ashton Addison from EventChain for Investmentpitch Media and FinTech News Network. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Greg Meredith, the founder of the RChain project. Greg, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's looking forward to our conversation.
Likewise, if you could kick off the interview by explaining to the people that don't know yet, what is the RChain project and what makes the RChain technology different in the blockchain space?
Sure. So the big picture for RChain is that we are focused on providing coordination technology to begin to address the issues around climate change. Governments and industry are moving too slowly, and so we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and get it done ourselves. And we see blockchain as one of the most important factors for or technology platforms for doing that kind of coordination. RChain is different, not just in terms of its focus, but also in terms of its technology and its governance. Our technology is correct by construction. So whether you're talking about Rholang and RSpace, which provides correct by construction, smart contracting language and execution mechanism, as well as a storage and query model, or you're talking about the correct by construction Casper proof of stake protocol. Our aim is to provide a technological basis which is gives a completely different level of security and correctness to the mix. Since we are focused on climate change, one of the things that we believe is fundamentally or at the very center and core of what we need to do to change things is our democratic governance model. So that's why we're a cooperative. We begin with one member, one vote, and we recognize that from that place we might find different kinds of governance model that are going to fit our needs at different moments.
Yeah, it's super interesting how RChain is one of the only co-ops that we've talked to and showcased on the show. In the blockchain space, it seems like it's a bit of a unique model. Has it had advantages and has it worked in your favor so far for the team growing the project?
Yeah, so it definitely has advantages. Well, it had some unexpected advantages. In particular, the demand that members, have real engagement in the co-op puts us in a different relationship to the Howey test, for example. So I wasn't thinking about that
Yeah.
when we launched the co-op. I was thinking about the fact that when I was at Oberlin College, more than a quarter of the student population lived and worked in cooperatives. So we made all our own food. We made, and the farm co-op grew its own vegetables, milled its own wheat, and it's really one of the biggest advantages is the spirit of engagement, which keeps the RChain going. The members understand that it's us and it's only us that makes this work, as opposed to it's them over there, they need to get it done.
Well, it seems like it's working pretty well so far, and your team did launch the mainnet at the beginning of this year after many years of work so far. So congratulations to that. But I know that
we were about a year late.
Yeah, well, I know that you are a visionary and you're always looking 5 to 10 years in the future. So could you give a glimpse into how do you foresee RChain working in the real world in the next 5 or 10 years?
Absolutely. So while our goals are climate and coordination technologies for responding to climate change, we recognize that you kind of have to crawl, walk, run. So in the short term, what we want to do is look to high transaction volume, low risk kinds of applications. The entertainment sector and social media sectors, those are really, really good examples, right? So if RChain, for example, is already fast enough and scalable enough to store audio data on chain. We demonstrated not only storing audio and delivering audio on chain, but that you can build some fairly compelling apps around asset tracking. And if you think about the internet of the last 10, 15 years, it's all been about digital asset tracking and management, right? Whether you're talking Instagram or Facebook or Spotify, all of those applications are actually digital asset management applications. So in the near term, RChain starts there, and that's the kind of DApp ecosystem that we imagine will take hold. But over time, as that scales out, in much the same way that Google started with very low risk applications and gradually expanded to higher and higher risk applications. We can certainly see RChain employed in logistics kinds of applications, and certainly social telecommunication applications. And then, but if you start to look at what it means to scale, even something like Facebook out to global scale with billions of users, each of which has hundreds of thousands of posts. In the blockchain world, each one of those posts becomes a smart contract. So you're literally talking about hundreds of trillions of smart contracts running concurrently. And no blockchain that I know of has talked about that kind of scope and scale in a decentralized setting or an architecture that delivers that. So RChain has a path to hardware architecture for the smart contract execution, and a very radical hardware architecture for the consensus. So that gives you both a kind of economic ecosystem and technological roadmap, or at least a taste of one.
Definitely, and it's great to hear that you have a plan to be globally scalable, because with music, data, there's just so much information, and the Bitcoin and Ethereum blockchains right now have had a lot of scaling issues. So I'm curious, is there a major differentiator in the way that now RChain is able to scale past those blockchains' scalability limits? And also, do you have an idea of how scalable it will be in terms of transactions per second or so at the optimal performance level when it gets to its peak?
Yeah. So again, we can talk about it in terms of each of the different rollouts. So for this rollout, which is largely just traditional software running on today's hardware, we're in the midst of doing a couple of sort of backlog updates, and once those are done, so in about let's say 2 months time from now, we'll be able to unthrottle the network. Right now, the network is throttled to just be a chain as opposed to a DAG. But once we unthrottle the network, on traditional hardware, we should see, like small hardware, we should see, something on the order of 3 to 10,000 transactions per second. When we get it up to the kinds of backbone nodes that we said we would need, as early as summer of 2018, we were sort of speccing out the kind of nodes that we would need for the backbone of the chain. We should be able to see upwards of about 40,000 transactions per second.
Wow.
So I'm still fully confident in that. And the differentiator is, of course, concurrency. Right. So our platform should scale as you add more resources. That's the basic idea. Ethereum is sort of anti-scaling. As you add more resources, it slows down. So ours should scale in a near linear fashion as you add more resources. That's the big differentiator for this instantiation of the architecture. When we move outward and replace the Java VM with some hardware, then we should see order of magnitude increase, if not 2 orders of magnitude increase on those transaction speeds. And then when we have the contemplated consensus hardware, we should see almost no time for the consensus, and in which case we're talking 3 or 4 orders of magnitude. Still a bit of a stretch to get to the kind of global Facebook trillions of smart contracts running concurrently, but it's at least within striking distance at that point. And some engineering innovations at that time frame can probably get us the rest of the way.
Definitely, and 40,000 is around what Visa and MasterCard, at least for financial transactions, what they sort of do. So that seems like it would be more than adequate, at least on the blockchain side in comparison. And part of that scalability, is it because RChain is also based off of the proof of stake consensus, or the CBC, as opposed to proof of work, with Bitcoin and Ethereum? Does that bring a major improvement to the scalability, but also the security and the other features of the blockchain?
Absolutely, yes. So proof of stake is a big win along a number of different axes. One very basic one, you'll see this feature in just a few weeks, is that we don't have to go all the way back to the beginning of time. We actually have finality, and once you have finality, you can say, okay, this is the latest finalized state, and so that's the new genesis. So you don't have to go all the way back to the beginning of time, which means that validators, which are the proof of stake equivalent of miners, can constantly compact their state. Whereas the proof of work state is ever growing, right? So the longer those networks run, the bigger the storage requirements are. But in the case of a consensus protocol with finality, the storage requirement doesn't have to be any bigger than the distance from the tip of the chain to the last finalized state. Never has to get bigger than that. So there's a cap on how large the state gets. So that's one example, and then the biggest other example is concurrency, right? So we're running a DAG, which means we can actually detect when there are transactions that conflict, and we know what to do in that particular case. Either you impose an order, or you let one of the competitors know that it lost, and so that transaction would have to be resubmitted. So that's a big, huge win, right? Because it means that we can have many more transactions packed into a block, right? We don't have to sequentialize in the same way that proof of work does.
Yeah, that's a huge advantage, especially because looking at Bitcoin's blockchains getting into the terabytes of size, and nobody can really even download it on their home computers because it's just too big. So that final state seems like it's a game changer. So with that staking and the finalized state, is that live now, or is it going live really soon?
So the last finalized state has been always a part of the protocol design, and we're just now putting the finishing touches on the features so that people can access it and people can join the network over and above the cooperative nodes, and there's a handful of other external nodes. But we want to, once we have that feature, we'll kind of open the floodgates with a big staking opportunity for other people to join in, which I think will be a really we should make some hay out of it, celebrate, because then we'll start to have a much more decentralized rendering of the protocol.
Definitely. And with the staking, stakers require Reve tokens, which are on the mainnet, the RChain mainnet. I saw that the Reve tokens were recently listed on MXC and on HotBit, which is great. So congratulations to that. Is there a further adoption plan for Reve tokens moving forward?
Yes, although in general, the exchanges don't like us to mention which ones are going when, because they want to sort of do all that kind of management themselves and have AMAs and all kinds of events. So yes, there will be further listings, but I can't really speak to that in public, and that has to be up to the exchanges.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. And if there are viewers that are looking to follow along with RChain's updates and get involved with the community or the co-op, what is the best way for them to learn more?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. So I recommend everyone go to the website, rchain.coop. That's rchain.coop. That's the beginning. Then there's developer.rchain.coop for developers who want to get involved. And if you really want to get in the mix, then please join our community debrief that happens on Zoom, and you can get that link from the website or from our Discord server. So, and that would be another place to sort of jump in and become a part of the discussion.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. I will leave those links in the description box below for the viewers. All the best on the RChain project moving forward. It sounds like you guys are making a lot of great updates. So let's follow up in the near future, and all the best with RChain.
Thank you so much, and likewise, all the best with your podcast. This is a great resource for the community.